everyone, and welcome. My name is Elizabeth Sabet, and I'm the president of the American Center for the Integration of Spiritually Transformative Experiences. And today we're going to be visiting with Chris Cole, one of our 2018 Aciste Conference presenters. But before we get started, I wanted to remind you that today is September 14th, and tomorrow on the 15th is the deadline to reserve your rooms at the Westin Chicago Northwest and get the discounted hotel rates. You can continue to register for the conference up until the day of the conference on October 4th. But be sure, if you're coming, to get your hotel reserved at the Westin Chicago Hotel. Now, you can go to www.aciste.org to register for the conference and get all the hotel information. Now, I'm going to be introducing our guest today. Chris Cole is a life coach in Boulder, Colorado, and he is been working with people who've had bipolar disorder and also with people who have spiritual emergence experiences. So he offers life coaching for any number of mental health disorders, actually, and he specializes in bipolar disorder and spiritual emergence. He hosts the Waking Up Bipolar podcast and is the author of The Body of Chris, a memoir of obsession, addiction, and madness. And this has been inspired by his own journey of spiritual unfolding and mental health challenges. Chris operates from a heart-centered transpersonal orientation, which has been gleaned from his really deep insight into his own lived experience combined with years of service to those navigating the intimate terrain of transformative crisis. And you can learn more about Chris and his work at chriscolecoaching.com. Welcome to our talk today, Chris. I'm so glad that you're here.
It's very exciting to me. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Chris, and we're very glad to have you here at the conference this year. You know, I have been working in training our peer support group facilitators, and some of them have had bipolar diagnoses that they've actually refused and said, you know, I'm not bipolar. I've looked up and researched spiritual emergence and emergencies, and I feel like I'm going through spiritual emergency. And then others have said, you know, I do believe I have a bipolar diagnosis and have those challenges, and I'm also waking up. And I'm going through the challenge of both waking up and having spiritual emergence experiences and have difficulty knowing if this is a spiritual emergency or if this is a bipolar experience. So your work is really important and really timely right now. We have more and more people finding the spiritual emergence work. And I know that your work is going to be really helpful to them. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started working with people who have spiritual emergence experiences?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I just love what you said because that was my experience. You know, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 18 in 2003. And what happened was I had so much spiritual content, so much personal insight come through that I could not in any way, at least not stay in my integrity and congruence, except that it was all pathology, that it was all brain chemistry and funky, neurotransmitters and chemical imbalances and things like that. And what I did was I really strongly refused the label, and I strongly refused the validity of the label and diagnosis. And I started to become a spiritual seeker. I was initiated into spiritual seeking, I like to say. And through that spiritual seeking, I eventually came across terms like spiritual emergence and spiritual emergency. And I felt like these terms were a saving grace, because it finally put into perspective how I could have a spiritual experience and it also could be extremely painful and emotionally confusing and psychologically disorienting and all these things that they can be.
Yeah.
And then I was really like, I'm planting my flag in this camp. I'm a spiritual emergency person, and this is what happened to me. And I'm not bipolar, in fact. And the subtle aggression that I took on for myself was the idea that if only I could integrate all these things, then I would be whole, then I would be healed, and most importantly, then I would be completely alleviated of these bipolar symptoms, so to speak. And I ended up having to really surrender to the reality of both worlds being true for me. And that crucible of the binary or the dichotomy of whether something's pathological or spiritual
Mhm.
had to come together in a way that made sense, and quite frankly is still making sense. And that's why some of the work that I'll be presenting has been born, is because my thinking continues to evolve. I'm very apprehensive to say something like mental illness now, whereas before I was really like, okay, I have mental illness and it doesn't need to define me and whatnot. And I've gone further into a neurodiversity paradigm that has really blown open the lid on my work and my thinking and my ability to live my life.
That's incredible. Yeah, you've been through an incredible journey. I've read your book, and just so impressed
Mm.
with your ability to be transparent about your journey. I know that is going to help so many people. And when you go to the conference, you're going to be speaking to professionals, to your colleagues, about this, the information that you, as you said, have gleaned from your journey. Can you tell us the title of your talk and what you're going to be sharing with us at the conference?
Definitely, yeah, and even like I got a little hot when you said professionals and colleagues. Like, oh no, I hope they don't try to lock me up, you know. But that's part of the passion I have for the work. So my title is introducing the Mad Triangle, and the subtitle is identifying trauma, diversity, and insight in locations of madness. And the title directly lends itself to exactly the sense of uh, stigma and oppression that so many folks face when they're diagnosed. And so the way I see the Mad Triangle playing out is that it can help people identify that all of us, whether we consider ourselves neurotypical or a spiritual emergency or a mad person, a bipolar person, you name it, whatever you have, bring it, because the intersection of the way in which our own diverse locations, our own embodiment is intersecting with our ability to have insight, which is which I like to simplify for folks as the revelation of unconscious material. So unconscious material made conscious,
Yes.
which doesn't have to necessarily denote spiritual, because that could be a loaded word for a lot of folks.
Yes.
So the insight of unconscious revelations is often very painful. I mean, working as a therapist and as a life coach now, I see in both worlds people have revelations about their lives. Tears start to stream down their face. Their body locks up. Oh, I'm repeating a pattern, or oh, I'm coming
Yeah.
in contact with a trauma that I didn't even realize was traumatic. And then the trauma piece is that we have all these adverse experiences, some of which are even intergenerational,
Yes.
and that they inform the way in which our body develops, our nervous system develops, whether we're a little less or more cognitively or rationally inclined, less or more empathetic, um, less or more creative. All these things come into contact. And the reason it's a mad triangle is because they're all playing off each other. So somebody might have an insight and it all of a sudden sets them up into a traumatic sort of experience in their body. Like somebody might have the insight like, wow, I'm in an abusive relationship. And then that's a lot of a different somatic experience than this is how it should be. And so there starts to be this kind of movement with all these locations. And then, of course, anyone that finds themselves in a less than dominant cultural location, whether that's a woman, person of color, queer trans people, etc., there are insights into all the unconscious activity that folks that are in the dominant location do not have access to unless they're really doing the work and trying to look at it. And so diversity and the oppressive or traumatic experience of diverse locations can also lend itself to a type of insight into the nature of reality, into social dynamics and systems. And what I love about this model so much is it's not making anyone say, this is where I am. It's really inviting a dialogue between the professional and the client. It's not only helping a professional have a bigger view of all the ways in which someone can come in and have both this profound insight of oneness and also this super regressive behavior or pattern that's being revealed. And we can hold a lot more in that way, in that kind of expansive view of ourselves. And then because we can view ourselves that way, we can be open to viewing another that way as well.
Wow, I'm so
I
excited.
could go on and on, you know.
I would love for you to go on, and you're going to go on and on at the conference. So, man, this is really beautiful. I absolutely love the model that allows this dialogue. And it's, you know, honoring and respecting both the professional and the client mutually. And that's where we see magic happen, where we're not just looking at a diagnosis, but how is this person experiencing themselves within this triangle? That's brilliant. This is a wonderful contribution, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing this information. And so everyone that's watching, if you have not yet signed up for the Aciste conference, you literally have one day if you're going to be staying at the hotel in Chicago. We're at the Westin, the Chicago Northwest. And if you're going to be there, you've got one day to get those special rates for the conference. So you can go to www.aciste.org to register and to look at all of the other brilliant presenters that we have there. Chris, thanks again. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And anyone that's watching, I appreciate you, and I hope to see you there.
Yes. All right, beautiful people. I look forward to seeing you at the conference in a couple weeks. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye, Chris.